This is Valley News Live at 10.
It'll work out some way or somehow. Usually does. But it's a little stressful.
The looming eviction crisis continues for many amid the pandemic. In an effort to soften the blow, President Joe Biden's eviction moratorium is set to last through the end of next month. But as Valley News team's Courtney Lockie learned, that doesn't mean all evictions have stopped.
For more than 5 years, this is the place Bobby DeLage has called home. The Green Fourplex in West Fargo is where he's made a lot of memories. Come Friday, he won't be there.
I couldn't find a job, so I couldn't pay rent.
DeLage fell behind on the $600 monthly rent after being fired from his job in October. He applied to several jobs and sought rental assistance, but nothing worked out in time.
They moved forward with the process of eviction, so I gotta be out Friday.
DeLage and his 13-year-old son have to be out in less than a week and have nowhere to turn.
I guess the hardest part is not being able to provide a home for my child.
The pandemic was expected to trigger the most severe housing crisis in the nation's history. One estimate shows as many as 40 million Americans were at risk. Even with a federal eviction moratorium, tens of thousands have lost their homes.
It's not easy out there for some people, that's for sure.
Bottom line, the moratorium isn't law. It doesn't mean renters won't have to pay the money back, meaning it's still up to a local court to decide the fate of the renter. For Bobby,
it could always be worse, I guess. So
that will be on Friday. In West Fargo, Courtney Lockie, Valley News Live.
43 states passed their own eviction moratoriums. Many statewide bans were in place for 10 weeks or less. In North Dakota, evictions were halted for about a month. Well, let's go over to Summer Snellbach to tell us about this weather. And you're saying it'd be the coldest day so far?
That's right. It is looking brutally cold yet again. Tonight could be the coldest for many that we've seen all season long. We could even beat this morning's low temperatures. 48 degrees below zero in Norris Camp, DNR in Lake of the Woods County. 45 below in Shooks, Minnesota. 41 in Lancaster and Pine Point. 39 below in Chamberlain. 38 below in Wales and Frazee. And a few other recording stations across the region. 39 below in Baudette today. 38 below the low temperature this morning in Rolla. Right now in Fargo, we're at 19 below, 22 below zero in Grand Forks. Anchorage, Alaska, how about 16 above? And even in Barrow, Alaska, one of the colder spots, 13 below. So we are colder than many locations in Alaska. And our wind chill warning is going to continue through noon tomorrow for those brutally cold wind chills. And Brian, there have been some chat from the National Weather Service that they might even extend that another day.
Can't believe we're colder than Alaska.
Very cold.
Thank you, Summer. Well, one man is dead and another man is facing charges following a fatal crash in the metro. Police say it happened this morning, just before 1. Fargo police officers responded to a crash on Great Northern Drive at 18th Street North. When officers arrived, they found a damaged vehicle and an unresponsive male. The 21-year-old male later died of his injuries. Through further investigation, officers learned the driver of the vehicle fled the scene. Police have since found the driver, who was currently being treated for injuries, as well as facing charges for DUI and criminal vehicular injury. The names of the two involved has not been provided at this time. More than 12 million people are now fully vaccinated for COVID-19 here in the U.S., but vaccine supply still remains an issue in some states. New infections and hospitalizations are trending in the right direction, but health officials fear holiday weekend travel and last week's Super Bowl parties could change that. So far, 483,000 people have died from COVID-19 in the U.S. NBC's Chris Pallone has the latest.
Vice President Kamala Harris surprising frontline healthcare workers at a Washington VA hospital Saturday, handing out cookies and posing for pictures to pick up the spirits of those dealing with the COVID crisis firsthand.
And you guys just keep doing it. You keep coming back. You keep taking care of people at great sacrifice to yourselves and your family. And we're so grateful to you.
At the same time, the White House calling on China to provide accurate data to the World Health Organization about its earliest COVID patients. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan writing the U.S. has deep concerns about how early findings in that country were reached and then communicated.
Feels just like a flu shot.
Today, more U.S. pharmacy chains are now starting to administer vaccines. Infections and hospitalizations in the U.S. are trending in the right direction, but with the effects of Super Bowl weekend unknown and possible widespread travel over this long President's Day weekend, health officials fear that could quickly reverse. They also fear the effects this pandemic is having on homebound school children.
Weight gain from not being able to be physically active, the isolation and, social emotional health.
School districts across the country now assessing how to bring students safely back into classrooms following new CDC guidelines released Friday. They stop short in mandating teachers be vaccinated, but call for strict mask wearing, social distancing, hand washing and ventilation, and contact tracing. Chris Pallone, NBC News.
To stay on top of the latest vaccine news, check out our VNL vaccine tracker. Just open your phone camera and point it at the QR code on your screen, then tap the link that pops up. We also have the link on our homepage. By a vote of 57-43, senators acquitted former President Trump in the historic second Senate impeachment trial. Earlier, the two sides presented closing arguments and reached a deal to skip witness testimony that could have significantly delayed the trial. CBS News correspondent Skylar Henry has more from Washington.
That the respondent, Donald John Trump, former President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the article of impeachment.
A divided U.S. Senate voted to acquit former President Donald J. Trump on the impeachment charge he incited an insurrection.
Mr. Romney.
Guilty.
7 Republicans joined Democrats to vote guilty, but they did not reach the 2/3 majority needed for conviction. Earlier, House impeachment managers wrapped up their case, arguing Mr. Trump set the course for the deadly Capitol riot well before his speech to supporters that day.
The President of the United States summoned this mob, assembled this mob, and lit the flame of this attack. Everything that followed was his doing. None of this would have happened without the president.
Mr. Trump did not spend the weeks prior to January 6th inciting violence. He spent those weeks pursuing his election challenge through the court system and other legal procedures.
Lead House impeachment manager Jamie Raskin also said President Trump reveled in the riot and took no action to stop it.
As he further incited the mob during the attack, aiming it at Vice President Mike Pence himself, while failing to quell it in either of his roles as Commander-in-Chief or his real role that day, Inciter-in-Chief.
The defense continued to challenge the legitimacy of the Senate trial.
This has been perhaps the most unfair and flagrantly unconstitutional proceeding in the history of the United States Senate.
After his acquittal, Mr. Trump issued a statement saying in part, "This has been yet another phase of the greatest witch hunt in the history of our country. No president has ever gone through anything like it." Skylar Henry, CBS News, Washington.
Saturday morning, it had looked like the trial would be drawn out after a vote to dispose a witness, but the two sides reached an agreement to move forward. Wouldn't it be nice to work from the beach? Well, one company says you can find out who in just a few minutes.
And tomorrow is Valentine's Day, but the only warmth around here is going to be the love that's inside of us, because our temperatures are going to be brutally cold yet again. I'll have that hour-by-hour planner coming up after the break.